All right, guys. So in our last segment of the day, I would like to talk about Lecrae and his conversation that he had with Pastor Giglio and the Chick-fil-A CEO. So I would like to first start off by saying that earlier I thought that this conversation was with the Chick-fil-A CEO based off of the way that the headlines on some of the blog sites was written. And with the way that it was written on certain blog sites, it made me think that, the CEO of Chick-fil-A was the one that really made the noise. But as I started further doing my research on this topic, I noticed that that this was actually said by a pastor, and that the Chick-fil-A CEO was just present at that time during this whole conversation that was had. It's just a lot of Instagram blog pages. They like to give information, and when they give the information, half of the time they give only a short little clip, so it makes you automatically jump to conclusions and feel a certain type of way. I looked at, even with last week when we talked about Nicki Minaj and Tekashi 6ix9ine when they were having the whole conversation with the rat situation. They showed on two major blog sites, on two major blog Instagrams, I should say, they mainly showed two small little clips of what they had stated. So it made it seem like Nicki was in favor, but if you go to other blog sites where they had longer clips, where it was more than just two little small clips, you could see that, Nicki was actually siding with Tekashi 6ix9ine rather than checking him like it seemed like she was doing in the clips from the major blog sites. So, not to say that, some of these blog sites be on payroll, but you could just kind of see the ones that are a little biased towards certain celebrities, and don't put out the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But that's a topic for another day. We're just gonna go ahead and talk about the Lecrae situation with these with the CEO of Chick-fil-A and the Pastor Giglio. So, in this situation, they had a conversation about white privilege. And Pastor Giglio ends up stating that, he's just extremely grateful for white privilege, or extremely grateful for white blessings and extremely grateful for slavery blessings. I'm going to go ahead and delve deeper into this situation and read an excerpt from what happened and what he had actually said. So, it says that we understand the curse that was slavery. White people do, and we say that was bad, but we miss the blessing of slavery, that it actually built up the framework for the world that white people live in and lived in, Giglio said. And so a lot of people call this white privilege. And when you say those two words, it's like a fuse goes off for a lot of white people because they don't want somebody telling them to check their privilege. He then continued his argument by speaking directly to Lecrae. I know that you and I both have struggled in these days with, hey, if the phrase is the trip up, let's get over the phrase and let's get down to the heart. Let's get down to what then do you want to call it? And I think maybe a great thing for me is to call it white blessing. That I'm living the blessing of the curse that happened generationally that allowed me to grow up in Atlanta. All right, guys. So, I mean, I would like to say I think I understand what portion he's coming from. But then another portion of me is like, I don't know what he's talking about, because the thing is, he would always be able to live in Atlanta. He's white. He's a white man. And the fact that he's a white man and he's living in the South, he would have had no issues with living down there, and I guess that's why he considers it a blessing, because he was able to live and be who he wants to be without having any issues. And people like myself, if I go down to Atlanta and I run into the wrong white person, I'm called all sorts of names, because, they just feel they can. They can call me all these kinds of names because that's just how they feel. So, I don't know what made him or what possessed him to want to even say something like that. But, it was extremely wrong. Now, the thing is, although he made those comments, it seems like Lecrae was the main one receiving the extreme backlash. Now, Lecrae was receiving backlash because while the pastor was stating these things, Lecrae was just nodding his head in agreement. And, even when I watched the video for the first time, because I'm the type of a person where I have to continuously keep watching a video so I can further understand what is going on. Then I need other information, like the backstory of everything, who these people are. And if anything, I had to look up who Lecrae was, because I had no idea who he was. I had never really heard of him. So I had to go look up who he was and why he was having this conversation with the particular people he was having this conversation with. So when I looked up who Lecrae was, I found out that he is a hip-hop artist. Now, he was labeled as a hip-hop artist, like a hip-hop gospel artist. But he states that he doesn't want to be labeled based off of his Christianity, although he does a lot of things based off of his religious values. So people labeled him into that box because they thought that that's who he was, but he just wants to be labeled as a hip-hop artist in general, because I'm guessing that he would like to just display hip-hop in all sorts of ways. But I think he's more so of the hip-hop that has meaning to it, rather than the hip-hop that's just something you can dance to and something you can, hear based off of your livelihood of street and things like that, But I could be wrong. But that's just the take that I got from it with Lecrae. But yeah, when you initially watch the video, you see that Lecrae is nodding his head in agreement with everything. And yeah, I must admit, once I first seen this, I was like, why is he nodding his head? Why is he agreeing with them? Like, this guy is literally talking about white blessing and slavery blessings, and this guy is literally nodding his head towards it. But then, Lecrae, he comes out and he responds, and he says that, he was not agreeing with him. And like I stated before, guys, when you go based off of some of these blog pages on Instagram, they give you such a short and tiny small little clip, and they don't really give you the full extent of what Lecrae was saying, because that night he actually responded to that guy, and he was trying to explain it to him. He was actually trying to break it down to him and explain it that you have to look at where we're coming from as African Americans, and explaining it to him that, why certain things happen and things of that nature. But it's like people are not really seeing that, they're only seeing the short, small little clip of Lecrae nodding his head. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed that podcast, please be sure to tune in every Monday through Friday on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocketcasts, and Anchor for the rest of that podcast.